Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Lutz. I'll be mediating today's meeting. I'm sure all of you know some of the rules of mediation, as this is not new to you. But just as a refresher, the objective for today is that everyone leaves feeling satisfied and happy with the outcome. And in order for something like this to work, you're going to need to share some information that's important to you and explore any options that might be available to resolve the conflict at hand. So my job as the mediator is to really help facilitate the conversation. I'm not here to provide you with any options or suggestions, nor will I be giving you any legal information or legal advice. Um, in addition, the process itself is confidential, which means that everything that is discussed in this session will remain here in this session. The only exception to this is if there is any allegations of child abuse or neglect or imminent threat of harm to self or others. These things I will need to disclose. I'm going to hand the mic over to my co-mediator, Jennifer.
Hello, this is Jennifer Hyman. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for reconvening. I just want to repeat some of the things that Ben has shared with you. Very quickly, I will tell you that I am your impartial mediator this afternoon. We're mediating your dispute to reach a resolution collectively. Everything you say in this room is confidential, except, of course, if it involves the abuse or neglect of a child or imminent threat of harm to self or others. If there's no objections, please let us proceed. Who would like to speak first?
I could go first.
Thank you.
All right. So as we mentioned at our previous mediation, Nissan has a reputation of cheating. He is known to be a cheater. He has a cheating problem. And for that reason, I don't want him anywhere around my children and specifically my child. So over here today, I'm going to request that I have full custody of the child, and I want to be the one to make decisions in her everyday life, like her emergency decisions and day-to-day decisions that are necessary. Um, I don't think that Nissan is fit as a father to make those type of decisions that are necessary for our daughter to live a normal lifestyle. Therefore, I think that I should have full custody and he should pay me child support and alimony. Um, I would allow him to have some visitation. He can see the child every other weekend. He can have some holidays of the years of his choosing besides Hanukkah, because that's my holiday, and I'm not gonna allow him to take the child from me. I would prefer that he has all his winter breaks, summer breaks with me, because again, I don't trust Nissan to not bring his girls around him all the time, because Nissan just always has new girls in the house, and I don't want my child seeing that growing up.
I think you forgot that I walked in on you cheating on New Year, so I don't know why you keep telling me that I'm the cheater in this situation. When Emily did.
I understand that you are upset at Gabriel's words. What I would like to do is to give a moment to reflect on what Gabriel's just shared, and then we will go to you to discuss what your story is. But Gabriel's told us some things that struck Nissan as particularly contentious. The first was a claim that, if I am understanding you, that the child ought to stay with you because the child will be better off with you. Secondly, you did not think that Nissan was a good influence on the child. You stated that Nissan has had liaisons with women, and you're concerned about the welfare of your child in that context. Nissan, we would certainly like to hear from you and hear what your story is.
Also, I want to mention that this is the problem with him. Every single time we have an issue, he always throws it back at me. Like I told him that I told him that he has cheating. He always attacks me. This is the problem with Nissan. He's saying, "No, you were the one caught cheating." It's not about that. Right now, we're talking about his antics, not mine.
Gabriel, thank you for sharing. We want to allot relatively equal time for each of you to tell your story, so that we can reach a mutual understanding of what took place and how we can move forward. I thank you for speaking. Please, Nissan, go ahead and tell us your perspective.
So what I think Gabriel is referring to is prior to till we got married and till our child was born. I was caught cheating a couple of times, but I fixed up my act after we got married. And in fact, I actually walked in on Gabriel sleeping with somebody on New Year's Eve. So for him to even bring up accusations from the past while he did this exact same act a month ago, after which I stopped, and for him to even bring it up is quite offending because I really did work on myself. Next, I feel that since I do have the money in the relationship, I do feel a lot more comfortable to have full custody of the child. I think that even though I'm at work, I could afford to have a babysitter that'll take care of the child full time, as opposed to Gabriel. After we get divorced, I don't know what she's gonna have to do to get her money, and I don't know how they're gonna be able to provide for the child and for themselves. So I think it's just a clear situation, and it's better for the child for me to have full custody.
No, I understand, Nissan, that you are arguing that that the two of you have mutually committed adultery, and what you have tried to do is change your conduct, but you accuse Gabriel of the very same thing that Gabriel has accused you of. So my understanding, Ben, was that it was on, excuse me, not Ben, you're Nissan. It was on New Year's Day that you were working and you happened to catch your partner in your bedroom with another person. So you're concerned about your child's welfare as well. And I think that that's excellent that the two of you are both mutually concerned about the welfare of your child. You claim that you want sole custody of the child, and Gabriel, who has accused you of adultery, claims to want the same thing. So the question is, how do we reconcile these two opposing positions and come up with something that is mutually agreed upon and in the best interest of your child? Would any of you like to continue to speak, please? And Ben, please step in and ask questions to help clarify these views because we're trying to come to an agreement today.
Absolutely. I'd just like to say before you guys continue on your side of the stories, that this this process of mediation works best when everyone gives each other, you know, their fair time to speak. So I'm just gonna ask you guys, please, not to interrupt each other. Okay, let's proceed.
Thank you for that, Ben. Jennifer, what was your question again?
I wanted to investigate what it was that the two of you held in common in terms of values. Both of you cared deeply for your child, Jackie, and I want to see if you have any kind of proposals in mind on how the two of you could pursue what the best interests of Jackie are. Each of you is claiming to want sole custody, but of course we can't split Jackie between the two of you. We can come up with an agreement, but that agreement has to come from you. It has to come from your perspective. It has to come from your values. It has to arise out of what you desire. So please go on with your story and let's see if we can reach some kind of consensus.
I do not believe that Nissan is fit to be a father. I think he doesn't even want the child. He cares more about his dog than about the child. He even, last video, he only mentioned about the dog. He wanted the dog. The dog is coming on me. He didn't even mention, the last mediation, he didn't even mention anything about the daughter. He doesn't even care about it. He's just trying to make my life a living hell. He doesn't care about her. I don't think he'll ever care about her. Maybe he cares about her a little bit, but not to the extent that I would care for, not to the extent that he will make the right decisions for her well-being. Again, for that reason, not solely for that reason, but for that reason also, I should have full custody, and I don't see any way that he should get full custody of the child. There's no argument that he can make because he just simply doesn't care about her. He never takes her out to, he never takes her on play dates. That's always me. He never feeds her for dinner. He never does anything for her. All he ever did was just provide for us. All he ever did was just give us money, and that's all we're asking him for now. Just give me child support, just pay me for alimony, and I'll take care of the child. He's incapable of taking care of the child. That is my deepest concern.
So if I
Well,
understand
thank you for
correctly,
sharing. Go ahead, Ben.
if I understand correctly, Gabriel, it seems that you're a bit frustrated with the idea that you feel that that Nissan has not been a good father and a
Absolutely.
good husband, and you feel that it's almost more important for him to to keep his and to keep his daughter.
Right.
So uh, let me ask you, how do you how would you respond to Gabriel's feelings?
Well, I think that his claims are obviously false. If I didn't care about my child, then I wouldn't want full custody. It would be a lot cheaper for me not to have full custody
Ben,
and
why,
to give her.
Nissan,
Please don't interrupt. I didn't interrupt when you were speaking. I also want to say that the reason why I don't want to leave my child with Gabriel, even though it would be cheaper, is because if this person had other people in our house while we were married, I can't imagine how many people she's going to have when we're not married and how all these strangers are going to come to my house. So I just don't think it's a safe environment anymore, which is why I believe I should have full custody and I could afford to have a full-time babysitter that is more experienced and I'll do 10 times of a better job that Gabriel will do.
May
you are
I
not
just interject because the two of you seem locked in a dispute where each of you is casting aspersions against the other person's character. What I was hearing from Gabriel was that Gabriel was feeling upset. Perhaps there's a better word, but Gabriel had some sort of negative emotion over the discussion of assets in the last session and believed that Nissan did not care for the child and perhaps even cared for the dog more than your daughter Jackie. And Nissan, I think that you would deny that that's the case. You're saying that you want sole custody because you care. You're also concerned about what kind of influences Gabriel would expose your child to. Both of you seem to have an interest in your child's well-being, but cannot come to an agreement that the other party does. Is it possible for you to look at your soon-to-be former spouse in another light? I know that the two of you are hurt by mutual adultery, but there must have been love in your relationship in the past. Can you look at your relationship to your child from the perspective of the past, of when you had been a happier couple? Is it possible for you to do that and think about how to move forward?
Once
Yeah,
again, like I said before, it'll be a lot easier for me not to have full custody, but I just want to ensure that the child is going to have, a safe environment, is going to be taken care of, and I want to fully vet all the circumstances around my child. I don't think that's a big deal.
Nissan, why don't you acknowledge the time that you forgot to pick her up from school if you're such a caring father?
Okay,
Um,
so Nissan, you've talked about, caring for your child and not wanting those influences. Gabriel has suggested that there was a past incident in which you hadn't cared for
There
the
were many.
child. Unfortunately, we can't trade accusations. Like the mediation session is not going to go well if we're locked in a positional debate about who has the worst character. What we need is for the two of you to reach an understanding, and I think it's already late and it just needs to be brought forward that both of you do indeed care about Jackie. Is it possible for you to see that in spite of your conflicts, that to see that both of you do care about Jackie?
Yeah.
Thank
yes,
you.
I think we could reach that conclusion.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we're going to have to talk about what your options are later. But I understand that there's just so much negative emotion surrounding the relationship. What do you think that your child needs from each of you? Talk about yourself. What can you provide the child with? Gabriel, please discuss this. Nissan, please discuss about how you would provide for the child, each of you. Gabriel, please go
So
ahead.
I could provide for her. I can guarantee that there will be food on the table every day. I can guarantee that she will be picked up from school every day when she needs to be picked up. I can promise that she'll have a good life. I can't say the same if she was with her father because he's never even around. He's always at some other girl's
This
house.
is,
He wasn't in
this
New
is
York.
without attacking the character of the other party, just to talk about what kind of interests you have in the child's upbringing.
So I would like the child to be a humble, well, like very respectful, um, smart. I want to send her to a private school, um, send her to after school programs, gymnastics, and stuff like that. Um, those are just some values that I see that I have that I would like to do for my child, and I don't think that Nissan has the same values for her.
Well, that's excellent that you shared that you care about the child's upbringing in a very intimate way. You want to be there for her. You want to get her involved in extracurriculars. You want her to become a good person and to flourish in the future. And you're thinking that, your influence will help her accomplish that. Nissan, what could you say about your influence in Jackie's life? What would you bring as a parent?
So I think my influence in Jackie's life would stem from the fact that, I could provide for her to have uh, to go to the best private schools where her education comes first. I could provide to have a very well experienced babysitter that takes care of all of her necessities. Um, I think I'm a great father and I'm very attentive and that I could spend a lot of time with her and be there for her as a parent. Um, and I think with all of these qualities, she'll be a very well rounded person growing up in my environment.
Thank you for sharing that, Nissan. Now, you will have time to speak again, Gabriel. I just want to reflect on what Nissan said. Nissan suggested that he would contribute to Jackie's upbringing in two ways. One that is more financial, and the other that's more emotional. I think that both of you care about the emotional well-being of your child. Nissan has said that he could provide for her in a material way, that he could pay the tuition that it would take for her to go to a private school. Now, Gabriel, you seem to be interested in the day-to-day factors of looking after your child. Is does that sound right to you? Does that sound right to both of you?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, I would like to speak with each of you and generate some ideas on what custody would look like. But I want to spend a little bit more time talking about things that took place in the past. What do you remember about two major events? These are life events for any couple, and I just want you to reflect on them before we move forward. What do you remember about the day that you got married and the day that Jackie was born? Could each of you share that story for me?
Well, I think the day that we got married, well, it was a rainy day, so I guess that foreshadowed our relationship. But I think in terms of the everything surrounding the event, I think it was a happy time. I think everybody got along very well, and I was looking forward to a very bright and long future. In terms of the date that Jacqueline was born, I think it was the happiest day of my life. I was so proud to become a father. I couldn't wait to be there for her and support her in every way, and I don't want to lose that right because Gabby was cheating on me and the marriage couldn't last any longer.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. It sounds like the day that you got married, you were very optimistic about the future. And though you might be saddened today, you could recall a time in the past where the future was bright and you looked forward to sharing your life together, which is really impressive, given that what has happened, that that sentiment took place in the past, and it's something that you can recall. You also talked about the day that Jackie was born and how proud it made you feel. And I'm sure that you will continue to feel that pride. But we have to talk about the circumstances in which the two of you could come to an agreement about about what Jackie's future will look like. Gabriel, could you please tell us about the day that you got married and the day that Jackie was born?
Sure. So the day we got married, I was ecstatic. I was extremely excited. I was extremely emotional. My family was very happy. I was very happy. Nissan was very happy. I too actually was very optimistic. I continued to be optimistic until I found out he started cheating on me. So um, with that said, we had a that day was just phenomenal day. Everything seems to be so great. We had promised each other, we made vows to each other that we will live happily ever after, that we will never hurt each other. But that obviously failed. The day my beautiful Jackie was born, um, we were same, very emotional. We were tearing. We were just so happy to have her in our lives. Um, we couldn't After she was born, we couldn't imagine life without her. So we thought that that would be the stepping stone to like a way brighter future than it already was, and things have just been going south.
I thank you so much for sharing those stories with me. It was really heartfelt. You talked about the happiness that you felt on your wedding day and the happiness that you shared with family. And you used the word phenomenal to describe it as well. I mean, that that sounds like it was truly special. And then you talked about Jackie being born and all the hopes that you had for her. And those hopes do not have to go away just because Jackie's parents have a dispute together. The two of you do have a serious dispute, but we're here in mediation so that we can make that dispute into something more positive. I mean, as a vehicle for a future relationship where the two of you live your values, which is with love for your child. Would you please tell us a little bit more about what you foresee for Jackie in the future? Tell us, Gabriel, and then Nissan, what do you foresee for Jackie in terms of where she might go to school, how she might grow up and perhaps flourish as a young woman? Tell us about how you see her practicing her faith, because I think that Nissan talked about faith. I think that Gabriel talked about faith as well. Um, how do you see those elements, Jackie's education, Jackie's flourishing, and Jackie's faith working out in the future?
I just want to add something that the reason why Jennifer, is raising these questions is because there's clearly a dispute here, and I'm sure as you guys all know that we're all here for mediation and to figure out how to work out out your differences here, and you have to start thinking about how can you guys work this out? What is gonna you know make everyone happy in the end of the day? There's a dispute. Both of you want something. So now let's think about some of the big picture things like Jennifer just mentioned.
Right. So ultimately, I think our daughter's happiness is our priority. I could say that for both of us. In terms of religion, I would want my daughter to practice religion, but again, I'll leave that up to her. Let her make that choice when she's older. But until then, I'll lead her in the right direction. In terms of education, me and Nissan both agreed that we want to send her to private school. Is that correct, Nissan?
Yes.
We obviously want our daughter to flourish. We want her to have nothing but success in her life, and I think that's mutual between Nissan and both. Uh, I just believe that I'll be better fit of giving that to her than Nissan would be.
But you can't even afford private school. So how's that possible?
Well, just because she's living with me doesn't mean you don't have to contribute anything to the fund. You'll be paying me child support. You'll be paying me alimony.
Well,
I'll make it work.
let's slow down. And before we discuss assets and finances, again, like we had previously discussed in our last session, let's talk about what we foresee for the child and in terms of her upbringing. I'm really trying to engage what it is that you deeply care about. Gabriel has just reiterated strongly that Gabriel cares about the child going to private school, wants Jackie to be healthy, and will leave her her faith doctrine up to her as she matures. So Gabriel sees Jackie becoming very independent in the future, but also having her basic welfare cared for. Nissan, what do you foresee for Jackie?
Well, I agree with just about everything that Gabby said. I just don't know, how he would be able to support her in any of that stuff, because Gabby's very, very full of just always in their own business, and is a very selfish person. So I think these are just words, and I think that it's very easy to say these things, but when you don't actually have to put the work behind it, you know, that's the way I feel it. But in terms of all the words that were said, I agree with all of them. And in fact, also to add a little more culture, I would like our daughter to go to dance lessons and play instruments, and I'll be willing to support all of that. But it has to be, you know, under my rule, because if I feel like it's not, it's just going to be wasted, because there's just no effort on Gabby's end.
Well, I want to say that I congratulate you on your fundamental intention to be a great parent. You want to take care of your child financially. You want your child to flourish culturally and get the best education. These things are great. But these things, I want to suggest, do not have to come at the expense of the other parent. These things that you foresee for Jackie does not have to, basically, as I said, come at the expense of the other parent playing a role in your child's life. Because what I've tried to highlight here is that both of you are very caring individuals, and though you may no longer be a family unit, you can care for her separately or together under certain circumstances. I would just like to spell out what that looks like. And if you will allow us to caucus with each of you, it would give us an opportunity to generate more ideas on how the two of you can share your care for Jackie. Would someone like to add?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. I'd like to speak to you guys privately, because I don't appreciate being called a cheater and adulterer every 5 minutes, because I never cheated during our marriage, and I just wanted to lay that out there again.
Want to do everything behind my back. All right. Want to caucus? Let's caucus.
Yes, please, let us speak separately and then come together again. What I keep identifying here is that the adultery hurt you both, but the adultery is not the whole story of your relationship, nor is it at all the story of Jackie's future. We have to understand that Jackie's best interests are something that we collectively care about. I'm going to say that as your mediator, I'm looking to bring out the best in you with regard to the upbringing of your child, and I think that resides deeply within each of you. So, what is one potentially? What trait could you identify in the other, Gabriel, that could help Jackie be brought up well? What trait? Because you've talked about how Nissan feels and what Nissan has done. But Nissan has sat here and he's told you emphatically that he has an interest in the child's welfare. What trait could you identify in what Nissan has said that that would make him a good parent to your child?
Can you repeat the question?
The question is if you could identify a trait in Nissan that would make him a good parent to your child.
the fact that he mentioned that he has no time ever, I don't see any good traits.
Well, that's really unfortunate. We're going to have a discussion at length because the two of you just professed to one another that you care about Jackie, and I was hoping that the two of you were listening to one another. Nissan, would you please give it a try and tell Gabriel one trait that would help the betterment of your child?
Great is to give full attention and support.
That's wonderful. I thank you so much. Let's take some time to breathe, and I'd like to talk to each of you. Let's go.